We have a guest in the studio. His name is Mike NDONYE. He is a senior lecturer for communication at the Kabrak University. Dr. Mike NDONYE, welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you.
Asante sana for joining us this morning. Feel free, feel welcome. Yeah. That's a hot seat, but you know, it's okay. You know, it's cold outside. Yeah, so anyway, being hot is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
You're a columnist with the Standard as well, sure. And your articles appear like today. There's the article, the column that you've written on page 14, yeah. The opinion page of the Standard, political chessboard, what Ruto should do to make all Kenyans feel safe in his hands.
Yep.
Previously, you've written other articles. There's one that you had written a couple of months ago, yeah. Moons ago, and you said, whoever Uhuru endorses will lose the 2022 poll, and here is why. Yeah. And you went ahead to seek to explain why. Another one later that you'd written about politicians craving for a return of a one-party system. So let's start with this one. Whoever Uhuru endorses will lose the poll, and here is why. Uhuru endorsed Raila Odinga.
Yep.
So what reasons did you have for predicting or for opining that whoever Uhuru endorses would lose?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Latif, and also SpiceFM for welcoming me, first of all, in this studio to discuss about that. And I think you will realize the political chessboard has been there for since 2020 January, actively. And there are a lot of things that I have written, and I was, in most cases, critical to Azimio, trying to offer what I can call advisory on the things they are supposed to do. First of all, I'm a political economist of media and communication. So I'm not a political scientist per se. And at the same time, there are things that I see from that perspective, from the political economy of communication. So in that particular, I think I did that column when during that time, it was not very clear whether Uhuru Kenyatta was going to endorse Raila Odinga or anyone. But there were some signs that he was to do that. But understanding the way politics works, I was able to know that there is what we call the burden of incumbency. And I remember when I did that column, most people, even analysts, did not understand me because I was simply using one factor, the issue of incumbency. Is it important? Is it something that we can say if the sitting president endorses another person, especially when someone has served 2 terms and they are going out, are there possibilities that that person is going to make it? And I used one actually analogy. I said regimes are like tea bags. Power is like hot water. Once a regime comes into power, it is like a tea bag that has been dipped in hot water. They lose flavor with the people. And putting it in another way, politics is about power and influence. Once you are outside power, you have a lot of influence. But immediately you come into power, you lose influence. And that is why you cannot have power and influence at the same time. So my problem was actually the incumbency. Going by the way the situation was, the life of Kenyans, the economic factor, and trying to see how is it going to be possible that the president will endorse someone and not be seen as a project. And it came to pass because if you look at the reasons I gave in that particular column, I was very much convinced the only thing that Uhuru could do if he wanted maybe Raila Odinga to be president, was to sit back and not to come at the front and say this person is the one. By doing that, actually, he loaded Raila Odinga with the problem of incumbency. And the last thing I can say is this, and I have stated it severally. The only way Uhuru Kenyatta could ensure that Ruto does not see the presidency was to endorse him. That was the only trap. Yeah.
So he bugs him with that incumbency.
Exactly.
City.
Actually, the good doctor has argued his case very well. Because incumbency actually does have baggage. I want to add on to the baggage that he speaks of. The real baggage in my mind is what he mentions as power. When you're on your way out, it is clear you're not going to be doing anybody any more favors in the future. So you really don't have power.
Yeah.
So what you say is of almost little consequence.
Exactly.
They know. So they would rather gravitate to the person they think would have the power. And then, given our politics and given the variables that we constantly deal with in our politics, the one thing that we speak of is really how it is there are misdeeds within our politics. But even as we speak of it, we never really speak about what really happens in our politics because most of it is shrouded in secrecy. You think, you hear, you've been told, but you're not sure. People go to court, you get tidbits here and there, but you're not sure. So all the time you're in this flux of, did it happen or did it not happen? Questions arise, and those questions are never, from the time of Kriegler, those questions are never responded to. So now the real baggage that comes in is you come into an election and already you have the baggage of mistrust.
Exactly.
You feel this thing, is it really going to go the way we think? And in summary, what it is, we don't believe that our votes, remember what we're talking about, the 7.7 million who didn't vote. They seem to be saying, we don't really think our voting actually counts. There are people who are going to decide which way this thing goes. So why should I bother counting? Now, that one, how do you get people out of that cocoon and get them to say, you know, folks, your vote actually does count and it can change things?
Looking at what you call the burden of incumbency, Dr. NDONYE, and then saying, this is not something that is peculiar to Kenya.
Yeah.
It is something that is seen around the world. Many would say when Obama, endorsed Hillary Clinton and then she came out to lose. So are we saying then that being in the office, you have this power, you have the power. When you are leaving, the power then hands over to influence?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. The thing is this. Leaders are placed into leadership by the people. Before you get into leadership and before people place you into leadership, what you need is influence. Because what they transfer to you is power. Like on 9th August, the sovereignty that we have, we as the people, through our votes, we handed it with leaders. And now, that immediately they are sworn into office, it becomes power now. With the strike of their pens, without consulting us, they can make policies. They can make things that will affect our lives. So that power, when you are there, actually cannot help you, first of all, because what you need is influence. And that is why when you are outside the power, you are influential. That is why if Raila Odinga is not in power, he will be able to call for a rally at Kasarani. And people will come. Uhuru Kenyatta cannot call for a rally. He needs a pen from his band and things will work. It means he has the power. But the other person has the influence, he has no power.
Okay.
Exactly.
So prior to power, you have the influence. And there's a reason why I'm asking this.
Exactly.
So should you then vacate the office, do you then get your influence back?
If you vacate the office, if you assume an outsider character like Ruto did, which was actually a kind of a deceptive kind of an outsider. He is inside, but he is outside. He lost to the people, he had no power. And that is why he was able to amass influence now as a spokesperson of the people. Because if you have power, you lose.
You're answerable. You're the person responsible.
With the people. Exactly. And that is what they could not see. Because once you don't see that in politics, it does not work. Whether it is in global north or in global south, it cannot work. Yeah.
Angela Merkel's choice flopped.
Yes.
Exactly.
The same thing that we're seeing across the board.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're seeing, I mean, I don't think we have many examples of where it would have worked in the reverse, right? Now, since we have these examples, we can see them. Why would anyone then make a decision about who they were going to endorse while still sitting on the seat of power if clearly everywhere you look, the opposite has happened? Exactly. People who are surrounded by advisors, people who are surrounded by example, people who are surrounded by experience. Why would you still go ahead and do that?
First of all, let's understand this. The reason why Uhuru Kenyatta had to support Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga was a weapon. We have to understand that. Raila Odinga was to come in as a weapon. Uhuru Kenyatta, I don't think he was interested in making Raila president. I don't think. He was using Raila Odinga as a weapon to teach Ruto a lesson. Whether Raila Odinga saw it together with his advisors coming, it is upon them. And I did a lot of writing trying to even, I still did another column on what stands between Raila Odinga and the presidency. That was the title.
So it was...
And it was a weapon, number one. Number two, remember, there are things that we need to understand because Azimio is a shake of flesh and thistles. And this is how it is. Azimio brought in politicians and activists. I still did a column on that. You cannot mix politics and activism. They are as far apart as the earth is from the sun. They cannot share anything.
Let's start with the first point.
Yeah.
Go a bit further. So if, in your opinion, Uhuru Kenyatta was using Raila as a weapon, was it against or for William Ruto?
I think you can argue from both sides. This is a Freudian kind of an argument here we can draw. Number one, it benefited Ruto. I still did a column on that. You see, the political chessboard has been analyzing all these things from all corners. That Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga were building Ruto unknowingly. I remember that was actually on a Sunday review. And so we can argue maybe he was conscious.
How were they building him unknowingly?
Either consciously or unconsciously. The Uhuru Kenyatta's satisfaction was to see someone coming to support him and helping him
running government smoothly.
Run the government and make sure Ruto is not closer to the power.
Okay.
Whether now, how it was to benefit Ruto now, whether it was conscious or unconscious, we don't know. But what we do know is that Ruto benefited from that fallout.
You know, you asked a question about the status quo when it relates to how people endorse, supposedly pass on influence from one leader to the other.
Yeah.
We actually do have on record people who've done that and done it quietly, stealthily, and has worked.
Yeah.
Mwai Kibaki. Mwai Kibaki didn't jump up and down and endorse anybody. But if you looked at what was happening at that time,
Yeah.
he had endorsed Uhuru. He did not say it. He did not mention it. You never heard him doing anything that you could overtly see. But he had done precisely that.
Exactly.
Now, if you look at, we like giving the example of the American election. You look at Biden and the election that he had. Now, the person who had endorsed Hillary Clinton, who was Obama, endorsed Biden again. And in this instance, Biden actually became president.
Yeah.
Okay? What am I saying? I am saying this. Sometimes we characterize certain situations in politics and we want to encapsulate them in a certain idea, and yet the whole issue is a lot broader. For instance, what is it that makes people vote the way they do at the time when they do? If you look at American politics, the mantra that very many of their politicians and presidential hopefuls have is they want to make America great. They may say it differently, but they all seem to say so.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at Trump, Trump had one huge benefit. He looked at how American industry had moved manufacturing to China. He did not need to tell people a different story.
Yeah.
He simply said, you know something, these guys took your jobs and took them to China.
Yeah.
The optics were clear. You didn't need to be a clairvoyant, or you didn't need to have studied some esoteric science to understand it. Now, in this country, the narrative that propelled someone like Raila Odinga to prominence is the same narrative that we now refer to as the hustler narrative. Same. It's just called something different, but exactly the same. So the question I would ask is, those who are in Azimio, how did they allow the person they were competing with to capture a narrative that their leader had held for so long and had been the leaders for so long? Because the narrative that had been now repackaged by the opponent resonated infinitely better. And yet their leader had been the person who had that narrative for the longest time. Now, this is politics. So you ask, what on earth were they doing? Or were they doing something? Or the question is, one question leads yet to another question, it leads to another question, and in my mind, there is no easy answer. Have I gone off on that tailspin that I sometimes go to?
Where do you find yourself? Where you are? What do you see around you?
Has the shrubbery changed?
Are we still on Earth? You know, if we go back to the idea and the concepts of influence and power, the beauty of discussing those two concepts is the dialectical nature of it. Because there are those who say they're synonymous, but actually they are not.
They are not. Actually, they are binary oppositions.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are not. You see, influence doesn't necessarily come with force. Power tends to. Because with power, your options are limited. Influence tends to allow you to make a decision to go along with it. That's why we say it's persuasive. Power is more demonstrative. It's like you are given options, do or don't at your own risk, more or less. Influence is, well, you know, you have the leisure and the luxury to think about it and to decide. And that, as you correctly put it, is determined by, let's say, for instance, someone calling a rally. But the thing that I found interesting between these two things is, if I look at the two candidates whom we've had, Raila Odinga and William Ruto, it's odd, but they both seem to have both variables. They have influence and they also have power. And I'll say why I'm telling you this. when you call for a rally and there are throngs of people, yes, it's a clear sign of influence. But the power that I'm speaking of is to actually have people who follow you closely and they are determined to follow you irrespective.
Yeah.
Now, someone can call it influence, but I'm saying that it translates for me into power because it's that following and that throng that now gives you this ability that I'm referring to as power.
Yeah.
You are able to do something with it.
Exactly. And exclusively because power, especially political power, that comes with an office, it gives you exclusive rights and it gives you permission and a leeway to exploit. You have the power to exploit. And in most cases, who are you exploiting? Your subjects, wananchi. And that is why when you have power, you lose flavor with wananchi because you have that ability to exploit them without consulting them. And you see, there is something I've mentioned in my today column there, that according to Machiavelli, we know the prince.
Niccolo Machiavelli
said this, that princes can be put in power by the people or by the nobles. And I have said there, maybe Raila Odinga had decided, had realized from 1997, he had tried the people. And they had failed him. He had this time decided to try the nobles. And I said, whatever you do with that information, it's your business.
You know, Daktari, since you mentioned Niccolo Machiavelli, let me refer to someone else who was a great influence to Machiavelli. It's called Caesar Borgia. Caesar Borgia was the legitimate son of Pope Alexander. Okay. Now, in his writings, he mentioned, you know, those are the days when Italy wasn't united as it is. There were princes all over this place.
Scattered,
every fiefdom and chiefdom had a king. Okay. Now, one of the things that he was known for was putting things together and he was what you call a serious political strategist. But he mentions that among the things that he found most perplexing was having planned one such machination and having considered all odds, there is one little thing he had not considered. That on the day he was supposed to enact that particular process, which he had worked on, and he was pivotal to, he fell sick. And in falling sick, the whole scheme collapsed.
Crabbled.
What I find is that he is speaking to how it is, consequences that are not only beyond you, but are unknown to you, can actually come in and wreak havoc to the best well-laid plans.
Exactly.
Just like the role of chance can favor you, and something that seemed very remote is suddenly brought to your doorstep, and it arrives, and it is now yours.
And we call it a blessing.
Yes.
27 minutes to 8. Let's take a break. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Dr. Michael NDONYE is a columnist with the Standard. He writes the political chessboard, which, for example, there's an opinion piece today, what Ruto should do to make all Kenyans feel safe in his hands. He previously said that whoever President Uhuru Kenyatta endorses will lose the 2022 general election. And now he's here to say, you know, I was talking about this based on things that, you know, we just observe around the country and around the world. That's what we're talking about. Let's take this quick break, take a look at the traffic and the weather, and then we'll be back. Today is the 19th day of August, 2022. Tomorrow is the 20th day of August. On the 20th of August, 3 years ago, that's 2019, SpiceFM went on air, right? This is the date that SpiceFM was born. It was as a response to what Kenyans were longing for, a radio station that would bring back throwback hits from the golden era of music, and also just cleaning up the airwaves, having mature, intelligent conversations. And that's what we've been doing, and that's what we've been having over the last 3 years. And we thank everybody who's been with us throughout this journey. It's not by our power, Not by our
Might.
might, but by the support of our listeners and the Spirit of the Lord.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Continues with Dr. Michael NDONYE, columnist with the Standard and senior lecturer at Kabrak University, talking about the political chessboard and what we are seeing. So moving to the other bit of what we are currently now seeing. So the President-elect William Ruto has started having conversations with those that have been elected under UDA and the other affiliated Kenya Kwanza parties. And then we are seeing him reaching out to others, especially the independents. And yesterday we saw him reaching out to a completely different political party that has previously said that it supports the Azimio la Umoja. I refer to an article that you had written earlier and where you were saying that clearly our political leaders seem to really be wanting to take us back to a big one-party state.
Yeah.
Are these two related?
Yeah, thank you. I saw this coming, and you see, we underrated President Uhuru Kenyatta. At the presidencies he was setting, the first one he set actually is the 2017 presidential debate, and the second one was he experimented with the possibility of creating a force using the opposition in his second term. And if you look, because by the time I did that column, I observed what was happening in his second term after the handshake. The opposition came together, they joined the government, and they formed a force in both houses. And through that force, they could do whatever they wanted. And were it not for some other institutions, for example, the judiciary, a lot could have happened in the second term because everyone was supporting and he had the majority in the house, courtesy of the opposition and whatever people he had left in his Jubilee government when Ruto went away. So that way you could see very well the politicians were not ready to be to be actually audited by the opposition. And you could see the body language of the politics in Kenya was that they don't want anything to do with the opposition.
They don't want to be answerable to anyone.
They didn't want to be answerable to anyone. And all indications were they wanted that. I think William Ruto learned from that. And you can see, less than 72 hours after he has been declared president-elect, I think immediately he was declared, he did not go to sleep. He just went back to the house and strategized on how to dominate the bicameral parliaments. And the one way of doing that was actually to look at those people who are loose. Loose people, those are the independents. He has already captured 10. Yesterday he got the UDM. Is it UDM? All of them. All of them. 7 plus 2 governors. The day before, he was able to negotiate with the 10 plus 1 governor from Meru. And I think we are headed to one-party system. Whether we like it or not, it is only that maybe this is not going to be de jure. It's going to be a de facto. There is a danger in that, by the way. And I still will go back to the Azimio. You know, there was you remember there was a time when Kalonzo was almost going
away from Azimio.
There were a number of times.
A number of times. And I remember I did a very, I can call it an ethical column. And I asked Azimio, why are you complaining that UDA is buying politicians? Are you poor? Don't you pay them to stay? And the same question will even come at this particular time, because politics is politics. Politics is a game. You play politics if you want power. Do you want presidency? You must learn the way you are supposed to play your game so that you get that presidency. If you want it, you don't give excuses. Still, I will, because what is going to follow is, Ruto is bribing them, Ruto is buying them, So the question I would ask,
why aren't you bribing them to stay?
Are you poor?
You know the good doctor actually raises.
It's being honest.
It's a very pertinent point, because why is it that in our politics there's this dichotomy? On the one hand, we see what they do, and then at the same time they want to present a moral front, which is a complete contradiction to the things that they do.
Exactly.
And yet they insist on this moral front. It's as though we the voter, visit Kenya every once in a while, and other times we're away. So it's like we don't know what happens. Who in the political sphere can talk of corruption and say that they themselves are not corrupt? Who? Which one? Who can stand up and say that they haven't used undue influence and they haven't used position that they have to exert whatever it is that they wish to? Who? You set the rules for these games that they play. Somebody clearly sees the rules, understands it, and doesn't have any moral baggage.
They play the game nicely.
They just play the games to its logical nth. And you come back and complain. I'm wondering, but then why did you get in the game in the first place?
You're in the game as well.
And you're the people who set the rules anyway.
And you say, you see, they are saying power is not given; it is taken. So, what are the means of taking power? It's been shrewd.
Yeah.
It's been diligent.
Play the game.
Play the game.
It's being devious.
Because
That's
I
how
don't
it is
think
played.
Yes.
I don't think there is bribing. I think it is negotiation. And the negotiation can be done by any politician. You can negotiate. And you see, you remember there was that issue that was raised when, and especially the social media, they were attacking women, especially women who were joining UDA. You remember even those narratives, misleading narratives about room 350.
Something like that, yeah.
Which I remember I was, I still did a column on that. And I said, no, there is nothing like that. If you cannot, first of all, demean women, that you are using some narratives to intimidate them, not to make a choice to join a certain political side, by telling them when you are on that side, therefore you are.
This is how you ended up there. This is the only way you could have ended
some
up
favors
there.
And that kind of a thing. Those are actually fallacies.
But you know, Daktari, the reason why these narratives continue, and the reason why both sides, because both sides play these games, both sides spin whatever is happening. Both sides want to put forward an argument that favors.
Yeah.
Now, this is now where we contribute to the situation we find ourselves in, because we take it as a sport and we participate in this, and we revel in it, and we seem to enjoy it, and we encourage it. Do you ever see the public outrage and say, we're not putting up with this nonsense? No. Do you ever? Yes. If you look at social media, there's chatter, but it's the same thing. People on one side, the other ones on the other side, and it continues.
Exactly.
Because to the point where, if like me, you're watching, you end up confused. You're wondering, so what exactly is happening here? What really are we dealing with? Now, the very people who are complaining, and by the way, both sides complain. Okay?
Exactly.
They are the ones who have set up this game. So what is it? Have we determined that we are spectators? We're just going to watch whatever it is that they're doing. And yet, without our vote, they do not have the power to do what they're doing without our vote. So we, by voting, set in motion. And there's a debate that doesn't take hold, and we've been trying to encourage it. What then do we do to hold these leaders to account? Because we've elected them.
Yeah.
We have the power. What do we do? Because in the absence of that check and balance, once we elect them, as far as they're concerned, for the next 5 years, they can do exactly what they want.
Do whatever they want.
In fact, Daktari, we are supposed to start holding them into account as early as now. It is upon us to start telling Ruto. You remember his acceptance speech, and he was very categorical, saying that I'm going to allow the opposition to do its work. Which opposition? He is killing it.
No, he's
As
not.
As we speak now.
Is it
Eric, whether you like it
or
or
is
not.
it, you know?
No, he is not.
Let's separate strategy and reality.
Okay, let me ask you, why do you say he's killing it?
You see, if you listened to what the deputy president-elect said, he said, immediately President Ruto is sworn in. Out of the 25 elected Jubilee MPs, are they 25 something? 19 will cross over. I believe him. Why? Back in 2020, when there was Jubilee fumigation, if you remember that time, Ruto said this. And we see it is good to read communication. Ruto said this, that you are not seeing the many people who are on our side. Even those people who are on that other side, they are ours. Only that they are fearing to cross on this side for the fear of intimidation. And he said, time will come, and they will come back. That is why I believe Gachagua. So, we are talking about 25, 19 of them crossing over after the swearing in of the president. 10 independents are already in government. Other 7 are already in government. So what are we remaining with?
Is that coercion or is
what
that
is it
willing?
that...
See, they're willingly crossing over.
Of course.
So how is that killing the opposition?
Of course. This is how.
When Moi Kibaki reached out to KANU after 2005, right?
Yeah.
And because these are the guys from LDP has walked out, reached out to KANU, reached out to Ford people, and brought them into his government and called it what? The government of national unity.
Yeah.
Right? Was he killing the opposition?
Okay.
He was playing the game. It's a political game. You are in government.
Yes.
You're looking at parliament. You want at least to have numbers that can influence your agenda to pass through parliament.
So what do
you want?
What is it that we say is the work of the opposition?
The opposition, whoever, opposition does not have to be majority. Whatever number the opposition is, can still play the role of raising the questions that they ought to raise. If you are in government today, Dr. NDONYE,
Yeah.
all right, and there's a 50-50 split
Exactly.
in the National Assembly, in fact, not 50-50,
Yeah.
your opponents have a majority in the House.
Exactly.
What will you do? You'll try and see, first of all, go for the moderates. And these are the ones that you're calling the loose ones, the independents. Try and have them vote with you so that at least you can have some sort of influence in the House.
So now
There are those that he will not go for. So let's even say that the Gachagua prediction comes to pass, that,
Yes.
there are some...
actually it will come.
There are some Jubilee affiliated MPs who will be
Who will cross
voting,
over.
who will be voting with the government of the day, right? Shida iko hapo bwana. That's how it plays.
What is the political economy? Why is it that Ruto is going for these people?
But he wants to govern.
But he wants to govern. And he wants to be able
But
to be able to
that's
govern over a nation
What is he
whereby
trying
there
to-
will be no
what is he
stumbling
trying to
block.
counter?
What is it?
Okay, what
must
do
you look
you-
at it from the countering side? Will you look at it from the countering side, or for somebody who wants to make sure that the things that they want to do from a government point of view will not go unobstructed in the House?
I think he would say unchallenged. But remember, the structure that would have given us a sort of opposition you're speaking about was what was envisioned in the BBI. This one, it's up in the air. And it makes it easy for people to more or less just cross over. Even if they are written down understandings that say you cannot walk out of this understanding until maybe November and what have you. the optics are that people are moving. So I need to ask this question. Let's say, for instance,
Yeah.
this matter goes to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And we say we have a rerun.
Yes.
Okay? Better still, we say that the Supreme Court looks and says, you know something, these anomalies are such that this swearing in
Yeah.
is nullified.
Forget it.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't have a president-elect. What do you think these people who are doing hop, step, and jump will suddenly do, in your estimate?
In fact, the reason why I asked what is the political economy of Ruto buying, of bringing people on board, because I'm using that because that is what is in social
To
media.
tighten the noose.
Yeah.
Yes.
First of all, I am not a lawyer, but I know if he has the majority, he knows very well the decision of the Supreme Court will depend on how much people you have also, apart from, because they look at more, they consider something beyond the legality of the thing. And if that happens, therefore, he will have a big stake when it comes to managing his government. And I believe, first of all, because I know Makau Mutua was here yesterday, I listened to his argument. But we also need to look at that aspect from different sides of view, from legal perspective, from the perspective of communication, the kind of messaging we are sending to the people, and also politically. So for me, I think one of the political economy of bringing people on his side, first of all, is that case which is going to the Supreme Court. Two is the issue of controlling the government. He needs to control his government. And that is where we are still having a problem that at the end of it, the opposition will be ODM.
You know, one thing to actually have control is not nefarious. It's not some dark, devious. It's what anyone who aspires to be a political leader wants. You want a majority.
Exactly.
When you look at so-called mature democracies, where because of the division of parties, they're fragile. Every once in a while, it's broken up. People have gone to another election and they've done whatever all the time. All they are seeking when they do these things is to have a majority. So that is just normal, ordinary politics. I would argue that the discussion that I would put across with our politics is not even these ups and downs and musical chairs. No, not really. Because that's not really at the heart of our politics. What's at the heart of our politics is how it is we determine who wins. What it is that takes place in the determination of a presidential election and the winner.
Of course, thinking like a politician, that is okay. Because in the outcome of any political scenario, you think it from different perspectives. If you think like a politician, then it is okay. And even for me, I am one person who is also on record writing that we do not need opposition, especially in Global South.
Why?
Of course, I gave some reasons why I was arguing like that.
Was it an academic discussion or did you believe what you are writing?
I believed in it. Yes.
Okay.
That opposition, first of all, is like a parasite to the government. And if you understand the insider trades of trading of governments, if you get someone who will tell you the kind of what opposition benefits from being an opposition, you will realize that sometimes we do not need opposition, or it is overrated. At the same time, that is thinking now like a politician. But you can also think like an activist. Because activists bank on those who are in opposition to push their agenda. So that is activist perspective. So when I say by bringing all these people is weakening opposition, I'm thinking like an activist. But when I come on this other side as a politician now, I will ask those who are crying, why are you not doing the same? You understand my argument?
Keep the people on your side.
Yes. So politically, he is good, and it means he wants to govern. He wants to be president. He is looking for it through all the means.
You know, if we had a class of individuals whom we refer to as politicians in this country, and we could argue that the majority of them are people considered trustworthy, yes, this discussion would have traction. I personally believe that it's definitively impossible on this planet to find a group of more untrustworthy people like politicians. The moment they are elected in this parliament and the moment they get it, it is not possible to find a group of individuals who are that untrustworthy. It's not possible. People who will say one thing and do the complete opposite. And the very thing they swear they're going to do is the very thing they hardly ever do.
What do you think will be their first task in parliament?
To pass laws that will help them do whatever it is they want to do.
You remember what is it called, this body that employs us?
SRC, and what the SRC was saying about
immediately
allowances and all.
The government was dissolved. What did they do? They reduced all the allowances,
and all.
blah blah blah. They
Dr.
did that.
NDONYE, I've got to cut you short.
But that is what they will do immediately.
As is practice.
They will do what
Together.
politicians would do. I would do that if you elected me.
Exactly.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. Thank you very much to Dr. Michael NDONYE. He's a columnist with the Standard and senior lecturer at Kabrak University.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.